ever imagine a world where like the emperor is just a figurehead
Hmm.
and these powerful warlords are all like clashing for power?
Yeah.
And the very definition of like what it means to be a warrior is just constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't Game of Thrones.
Right.
This is feudal Japan
Yeah.
during the Sengoku period.
Exactly.
And it's even more captivating than any like fantasy epic you could imagine.
Absolutely.
So today we're diving into that world
Yeah.
of that period of Japanese history.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a fascinating episode of the Echoes of History podcast
Right.
all about this era, the Sengoku period.
Mm-hmm.
It's no coincidence that it's also like the setting for this new Assassin's Creed game that's coming
Well,
out.
it's a really popular period.
Yeah, it really captures people's imaginations for some reason.
It does.
So for anyone who's like ever been fascinated by samurai or ninjas
Mm-hmm.
or just like a really good historical yarn,
Yeah.
this deep dive is
Yeah.
going to be your guide to understanding this like pivotal moment
Absolutely.
in Japanese history.
For sure.
So before we get into like the actual samurai skirmishes and the sieges and everything,
Mm-hmm.
let's kind of set the stage a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
So before the Sengoku period, starts in the mid 1400s,
Mm-hmm.
Japan had a system of government that, like, on the surface at least, seemed pretty ordered.
Yeah.
You had the emperor, this figure who was like revered as a descendant of the gods.
Right.
But
But not really calling the shots.
Yeah, he wasn't really calling the
He's
shots.
sort of symbolic.
Yeah, more like a figurehead.
Right.
So the real power was actually with the shogun,
Yeah.
this military leader who ruled in the emperor's name.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a warrior government, the shogunate,
Yeah.
really running the show.
Yeah.
But beneath this like stable facade,
Right.
there were some cracks starting to appear.
Yeah, some big cracks, actually.
And those cracks widen into a full-blown chasm with the Onin War.
Yeah.
This like decade of just brutal conflict.
Yeah, it was bad.
From 1467 to 1477.
Right.
That really just left the capital city of Kyoto in ruins.
Yeah, it just devastated the place.
And the shogun's authority was in tatters after that.
In tatters, yeah.
So it's like the whole country was a powder keg, just waiting for like a spark to set it off.
Yeah, exactly. Like just waiting to explode.
And that spark ignited a period of just intense conflict
yeah.
as these regional lords
Mm-hmm.
who had once been like bound by loyalty to the shogun,
Right.
they saw a chance to grab power for themselves.
Yeah, they saw an opportunity.
They were ambitious,
Of course.
they were ruthless, and they were ready to expand their territory
At any cost.
no matter the cost.
Yeah.
So this brings us to the iconic figures of this era, the samurai.
Oh, yeah.
I think most people, when they think of samurai, they have this image of like the noble samurai,
Right.
totally loyal to their lord,
Mm.
skilled in swordsmanship,
Yeah.
and they adhere to this strict code of honor.
Bushido.
Yeah, Bushido.
Right.
But I have a feeling the Sengoku period kind of turned that stereotype on its head.
Yeah. It definitely complicated things.
So the ideals of samurai conduct like remained important,
Mm-hmm.
but the reality of warfare in the Sengoku period
Right.
demanded adaptability.
Yeah. You had to be able to roll with the punches.
And often like a really pragmatic approach to just surviving.
Absolutely.
So samurai loyalty shifted from the shogun, who was kind of this distant figure,
Yeah, he was kind of out of the picture.
to their immediate daimyo,
Mm-hmm.
the warlord who controlled their lands and really their fate.
Exactly the one they had to answer to.
So it was kind of like a feudal free-for-all,
in a lot of ways, yeah.
with alliances shifting constantly
Mhm.
and samurai having to choose sides very carefully.
Yeah. One wrong move and you could be in big trouble.
And to add fuel to the fire,
Right.
a new technology arrives on Japanese shores
Oh.
that is going to revolutionize warfare:
What is it?
firearms.
Wow.
In the mid-1500s, Portuguese traders introduced matchlock guns to Japan.
So we're talking about guns in feudal Japan.
Yeah, guns in feudal Japan.
That seems like a clash of worlds.
It's a huge clash of worlds,
Yeah.
and it was a game changer.
Absolutely.
Some daimyo, like the ambitious and ruthless Oda
Yeah.
Nobunaga,
Oh, yeah.
they quickly grasped the potential of these new weapons.
He was ahead of his time.
Now, I've heard of Nobunaga. He's like a legendary figure.
He is.
I mean, he's notorious for being this brilliant strategist, but also incredibly brutal.
Yeah. A very complicated figure.
Yeah, definitely a product of his time.
For sure.
So he was a master of military innovation,
Mm-hmm.
adopted firearms, and he used these unconventional tactics
Right.
to like devastating effects.
The great effect.
But he also wasn't afraid to use extreme measures to achieve his goals.
No, he definitely wasn't.
Like, I remember reading about some of his campaigns.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty ruthless stuff.
Yeah, some pretty brutal stuff.
So Nobunaga, he believed that unifying Japan and bringing an end to the chaos required a firm hand.
A strong leader.
Yeah, he saw himself as the one who was destined to restore order.
Interesting.
Even if it meant resorting to some pretty harsh methods.
Right.
And one example that kind of highlights this approach is his treatment of certain Buddhist sects.
Yeah, the Buddhists.
Which he saw as threats to his authority.
That's right.
Now, I know Buddhism played like a major role in Japanese society. But how did it get, like, tangled up in these power struggles?
Well, some Buddhist sects, they'd accumulated a lot of wealth. And they had a ton of influence.
Right.
They even had their own armies.
Yeah, warrior monks.
Warrior monks.
Yeah.
So Nobunaga saw them as potential rivals, obstacles to his ambition.
Right.
So he wasn't about to let religion stand in his way.
No, he was not.
So in a famous incident, Nobunaga laid siege to the Ishiyama Honganji, this heavily fortified temple complex.
Yeah, it was quite a complex.
The Jodo Shinshu sect in Osaka.
Wow.
So this wasn't just about winning battles. This was about crushing any potential opposition.
Yeah, he wanted to eliminate any threats, even religious institutions.
Even in the religious institution.
And this siege, it lasted for years.
Well,
both sides showed remarkable tenacity.
They were determined.
But Osaka was strategically situated on the coast, so they could be resupplied by sea.
Right.
But Nobunaga, he eventually cut off those supply lines. And faced with defeat, the Jodo Shinshu leaders, they made a pretty dramatic last stand.
What did they do?
So as they were negotiating their surrender, they set fire to the entire complex.
Wow.
This act of defiance that denied Nobunaga a complete victory.
That's a powerful statement.
It's a really powerful image.
Yeah.
This burning temple, a symbol of resistance against like a seemingly unstoppable force. It really highlights the stakes of the Sengoku period.
It really does.
And this wasn't an isolated incident.
Right.
Nobunaga had a similar confrontation with the Tendai sect on Mount Hai near Kyoto.
Mount Hai.
So Nobunaga, he viewed the Tendai as the threat, and he ordered his forces to attack Mount Hai.
Oh, no.
Resulting in the destruction of the temple complex.
Wow.
And the deaths of thousands.
It's a reminder that this period...
It's a stark reminder that while it's captivating, it was also incredibly brutal.
It was a brutal time.
It was a time of survival where power was often measured in blood and sacrifice.
Yeah.
And Nobunaga, for all his brilliance and ambition, he was definitely a product of this environment.
Absolutely.
But as we've seen, this era wasn't just about warfare and destruction.
Right.
It was also a time of cultural change. With new ideas, new technologies, and new ways of thinking kind of emerging.
So amidst all this chaos, there's this kind of undercurrent of change.
Yeah, this simmering undercurrent.
Yeah.
And at the heart of it all is Oda Nobunaga.
Right.
This fascinating,
larger-than-life figure.
Flawed and undeniably powerful figure.
Yeah.
Who seemed determined to leave his mark on history. But did he succeed?
That's the question.
Did he achieve his goal of unifying Japan?
Well, that's where our story takes a bit of an unexpected turn.
Ooh.
Nobunaga's quest for domination was tragically cut short, not on the battlefield, but by a betrayal from within his own ranks.
A betrayal?
Yeah.
Wow. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Sengoku period.
So last time you were telling us about this betrayal.
Right.
So what happened?
Well, in 1582, Nobunaga met his end, not from an enemy's sword.
Oh, wow.
But from the treachery of one of his own trusted generals.
One of his own generals.
Akechi Mitsuhide.
Wow. Talk about a plot twist.
Yeah.
So what led Mitsuhide to betray someone like Nobunaga?
Right.
I mean, he was known for being such a formidable leader.
Well, the exact reasons behind Mitsuhide's betrayal are still a bit of a mystery. Historians debate them to this day.
Yeah.
Some theories suggest it was personal resentment.
Okay.
Maybe he felt slighted in some way. Others point to political maneuvering.
Maybe he saw an opportunity to gain power.
Right.
And some even suggest he wanted to protect the emperor from Nobunaga's growing power.
Interesting.
So it's a bit of a historical puzzle.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that Mitsuhide decided to take matters into his own hands.
Okay.
And he staged this surprise attack on Nobunaga.
Wow. It's a surprise attack.
At Honnoji Temple in Kyoto.
Oh?
Nobunaga was caught completely off guard.
Oh, no.
He was outnumbered, no escape.
Oh, wow.
And rather than surrender to his betrayer,
Right.
Nobunaga chose to commit seppuku, a ritual suicide.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept.
It is.
If I'm being honest. A little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
But it really speaks volumes about the samurai code of honor, even in the face of defeat.
It was a deeply ingrained part of samurai culture,
Right.
a way to die with honor rather than face the shame of capture.
Yeah, and Nobunaga's death.
Right.
So sudden, so dramatic.
It really was.
It must have sent shockwaves through Japan. I mean, this leader, this guy who was seemingly unstoppable,
Right.
he was on the cusp of unifying the nation.
He was so close.
And suddenly he's just gone.
Yeah.
So what happened next? Did the country just descend back into chaos?
There was definitely a power vacuum.
Okay.
Nobunaga's top generals all kind of scrambled to fill the void.
Right.
But one figure emerged from the shadows.
Okay.
A man who would not only avenge Nobunaga, but also inherit his ambition to unify Japan.
So who was this?
Toyotomi Hideyoshi.
Hideyoshi, okay.
Yeah.
Remind me, what was his connection to Nobunaga?
Okay.
Was he like a close advisor or something?
Well, he was actually a fascinating figure, a real testament to the opportunities that sometimes arose amidst the chaos of the Sengoku period.
Yeah.
Hideyoshi had really humble beginnings.
Okay.
He started as a foot soldier in Nobunaga's army.
Wow.
But he rose through the ranks very quickly, demonstrating remarkable talent as a strategist and a really cunning political mind.
So not your traditional samurai born into privilege.
No, not at all.
He really had to work his way up.
He did.
Okay, so I could see how he was able to step into Nobunaga's shoes, but how did he handle the immediate aftermath of the betrayal?
Right.
I imagine there were a lot of people
yeah.
who were vying for power with Nobunaga gone.
There were a lot of ambitious people out there.
Yeah.
But Hideyoshi moved swiftly and decisively.
Okay.
First, he focused on avenging Nobunaga.
Okay.
By defeating Akechi Mitsuhide in battle.
So he eliminates the traitor.
Yeah, takes care of that loose end.
Okay, so what about the other rivals who were eager to seize control? Did he just launch into a series of bloody conquests like Nobunaga had done?
Well, Hideyoshi was a master of both warfare and diplomacy.
Okay.
He understood that brute force alone wouldn't unify Japan, so he formed strategic alliances, used his cunning to play rivals against each other, and gradually, piece by piece, he consolidated his power.
So he was kind of like a chess player.
Exactly.
Thinking several moves ahead.
Yeah, he was always thinking ahead.
Okay, and did he succeed?
Well,
did he finally achieve what Nobunaga had set out to do?
Right.
Unify Japan.
By 1590,
okay,
after years of strategic maneuvering, Hideyoshi had effectively brought all of Japan under his control.
Wow.
And he implemented a series of reforms aimed at solidifying his rule and bringing stability to the nation.
So like what kind of reforms?
Well, one of his most significant moves was a nationwide land survey.
A land survey?
It allowed him to assess the true agricultural productivity of the country, which was really the basis of wealth and power at the time.
Right.
It also helped him establish a more equitable system of taxation.
So he was thinking about the long game, not just short-term gain.
Exactly.
Right.
He also implemented a policy known as the sword hunt.
The sword hunt. What was that?
It was a pretty bold move. Involved confiscating weapons from the peasantry.
So essentially disarming anyone who wasn't a samurai.
Exactly. It was a way to prevent uprisings and solidify the samurai class as the sole military force in the country.
Interesting. So he's consolidating power, reforming the government, bringing stability to Japan after a century of warfare.
It was a remarkable feat.
It really was.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling Hideyoshi, like Nobunaga, was a man of immense ambition.
You're right to sense that ambition.
Yeah.
Hideyoshi, having unified Japan, wasn't content to simply rule over the islands.
So he had bigger plans.
He did.
What was he thinking?
He had a vision of expanding Japanese influence across Asia.
Across Asia.
Even setting his sights on conquering China.
Wow, that's a bold ambition.
It is.
So did he actually try to put this plan into action?
He did.
Okay.
In the 1590s, Hideyoshi launched 2 major invasions of Korea, hoping to use it as a stepping stone to eventually conquer China.
So he was essentially trying to build a Japanese empire.
That's one way to look at it, yeah.
But did he succeed?
Well,
Did he manage to conquer Korea and then move on to China?
The Korean campaigns were ultimately unsuccessful.
Oh.
The Koreans, with the support of their Chinese allies, put up a fierce resistance.
Okay.
The Japanese forces were also hampered by logistical challenges and internal divisions.
So it sounds like it was a bit of a mess.
It was.
Okay.
After years of fighting, the campaigns ended in stalemate. And Hideyoshi's grand vision of a Japanese empire remained unfulfilled.
It's fascinating how this one period in Japanese history produced two such powerful and ambitious figures.
Yeah.
Both driven to unify the nation and expand its influence.
Right.
But they went about it in very different ways.
They did.
Nobunaga, the ruthless innovator, willing to use brute force to achieve his goals.
Yeah.
And then Hideyoshi, the cunning strategist and diplomat, who understood the importance of building consensus and forging alliances.
That's great observation.
They were both products of the Sengoku period.
Absolutely.
Shaped by its violence and uncertainty.
For sure.
But they also embodied different aspects of leadership and power.
Yeah, different approaches to leadership.
And both, despite their successes, ultimately met with limitations.
They did.
Nobunaga betrayed by one of his own.
Right.
And Hideyoshi unable to realize his grand vision of an Asian empire.
Yeah.
Their stories are a reminder that even the most powerful individuals are often shaped by the forces of their time.
Absolutely.
Facing challenges and setbacks that can derail even the most carefully laid plans.
Yeah, life is unpredictable.
Yeah.
But the impact of these two figures on Japan was profound.
Okay.
They brought an end to a century of warfare.
Wow.
Laid the foundation for a unified nation and set the stage for the Edo period, a time of peace and stability that would last for over 2 centuries.
So it's a story of both destruction and rebirth, of ambition and its limits, of the individuals who shape history and the historical forces that shape them in turn.
Exactly. A complex interplay of factors.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the leaders.
Right. The battles, the political maneuvering.
Yeah, the big picture stuff.
But I'm kind of curious to learn more about the everyday lives of people during this turbulent era.
Yeah, what about the ordinary people?
Exactly.
Caught in the middle of all this.
What was life like for the farmers, the merchants, the artisans? How did they navigate the challenges of this chaotic century?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that takes us to the heart of social history.
Okay.
Exploring the experiences of those who lived beyond the walls of castles and the clash of armies.
Okay, so join us for part 3 of our deep dive as we delve into the lives of ordinary people in Sengoku-era Japan. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Right.
So we've been exploring the Sengoku period, this rise and fall of these powerful figures.
Yeah.
Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi.
These big names.
But now I think it's time to kind of shift our focus a little bit.
Yeah, zoom in a little.
Yeah, let's zoom in on the lives of everyday people during this time.
The everyday folks.
Exactly, because it's easy to get caught up in like, the epic battles and the political intrigue.
Right.
But it's important to remember
for sure
that history is made up of countless individual stories.
So many stories.
And the Sengoku period was no exception.
No, not at all.
So let's start with like the foundation of society.
Okay.
The farmers.
Yeah.
They weren't wielding swords or commanding armies.
Right.
But their lives were definitely deeply affected by the constant warfare.
Absolutely. Their lives were turned upside down.
So what was it like for them? I mean, I imagine it wasn't all idyllic rice paddies and peaceful harvests.
No, definitely not.
So for farmers, the Sengoku period was a time of great uncertainty and hardship.
Yeah. It was a really tough time.
I mean, armies marching through their fields.
Right.
They could trample crops.
Destroy their livelihoods.
Demand supplies.
Take what they needed.
And even conscript men into service.
Yeah, basically forced labor.
So it wasn't just about surviving the battles.
Right.
It was about surviving the armies themselves.
Exactly.
And then there were the taxes.
The
taxes. They were constantly vying for power.
Always fighting.
They needed resources.
They needed money.
To fund their wars.
To pay for their armies.
And maintain their armies.
Right.
And this often meant heavy taxes on the peasantry.
Yeah, the farmers bore the brunt of it.
Leading to further hardship.
Exactly.
So it sounds like a constant struggle just to get by.
It really was.
Were there any bright spots, any aspects of their lives that offered a sense of stability or community?
Well, despite the hardships, village life remained a source of strength and resilience. Farmers relied on each other for support, sharing resources.
Right.
Labor celebrating festivals together.
Yeah.
That provided moments of respite from all the chaos.
Exactly. A little bit of joy in the midst of all the hardship.
So it's that age-old story of human resilience, finding ways to connect and create meaning even in the darkest of times.
Absolutely. The human spirit is strong.
And this was also a time of cultural change, even in the countryside.
Yeah.
New religious ideas, particularly those of Zen Buddhism.
Zen Buddhism.
Spread through like traveling monks.
Yeah, those wandering.
Offering solace and spiritual guidance to those who are facing difficult times.
Exactly, finding meaning in a chaotic world.
It's fascinating how these cultural and religious movements could thrive even amidst all the turmoil of war.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It speaks to like this deeper need for connection and meaning that kind of transcends the immediate circumstances.
It does. It shows that even in the darkest of times, people are searching for something more.
Okay, so we've talked about the farmers.
Right. The backbone of society.
Yeah, the backbone. But there are other groups as well. Merchants and artisans.
Right.
Who also played vital roles in shaping the Sengoku period.
They did.
So I imagine the constant warfare must have, like, disrupted trade.
Yeah, you'd think so.
And just made it really difficult to conduct business.
Right.
How did they manage to survive, let alone thrive in such a chaotic environment?
Well, you'd be surprised. The Sengoku period actually saw the growth of certain industries and the rise of new merchant classes.
Really?
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, with daimyo constantly at war, they needed weapons, armor provisions.
All the things could keep their armies going.
All the things that fueled their armies. Exactly.
So it was like a war economy.
Yeah, you could say that.
Creating opportunities for those who could meet the demand.
That's right.
So blacksmiths, for example, they thrived.
They did.
Producing swords, spears, and later even firearms.
Right.
Mining towns emerged.
Yeah.
To provide the raw materials for these industries.
Exactly.
And what about the merchants?
Right.
They must have had to be incredibly adaptable.
Oh, yeah. They had to be on their toes.
And resourceful.
For sure.
To navigate these shifting alliances. And the dangers of wartime trade.
Yeah, it was risky business.
So merchants, they had to be savvy negotiators.
They did.
Skilled at building relationships with daimyo.
Right.
And securing safe passage for their goods.
Yeah, keeping those trade routes open.
They formed guilds, networks.
Pit protection.
They financed warlords in exchange for protection.
Yeah, it was kind of like a protection racket.
And they even financed like the construction of castles and temples.
Wow, so they were really powerful.
Yeah, they were playing the game too.
They were.
But on a different board.
At a different level.
They understood that power and wealth were intertwined.
Right.
And they found ways to leverage their economic influence to navigate this turbulent period.
Exactly.
So the Sengoku period, for all its challenges, also created opportunities.
It did.
For those who are willing to adapt and take risks.
That's a great point.
While it's easy to focus on the battles and the political machinations.
Right, all the fighting and scheming.
It's important to remember that this was also a time of social and economic change.
It was a time of transformation.
It was a crucible.
Yeah.
That forged new relationships, new ways of thinking, and new pathways to power.
Absolutely.
So we've gone from the top of the social pyramid with like the daimyo and samurai, all the way down to the base. With the farmers and the merchants and the artisans.
The everyday people.
And it's fascinating to see how this period impacted like every level of society.
It did.
From the grand strategies of the warlords to the everyday lives of ordinary people.
Absolutely. History is about everyone.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that history is never just about like the great men.
That's right.
It's about the collective experience.
Yeah.
This tapestry woven from the lives of everyone who lived through those times.
Every story matters.
Yeah, this deep dive has definitely given me like a new appreciation for the complexity of the Sengoku period.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating period.
It's not just a simple tale of samurai and swords.
Right.
It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and the interconnectedness of all levels of society.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a story that continues to resonate with us today.
It does.
Reminding us of like the enduring human capacity for innovation, resilience, and the search for meaning, even in the face of extraordinary challenges.
It's a powerful message.
So I think it's time to wrap up our journey through feudal Japan.
Yeah.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It has.
Of this pivotal period in history. Mm-hmm. One that shaped the nation.
Absolutely.
And continues to capture our imaginations.
For sure.
So if you've enjoyed this deep dive,
yeah,
be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations of history, science, and culture.
We'll see you next time.
That's it for today's episode.
Okay.
Until next time, keep on learning and stay curious.